welcome you once again to our discussion for today. As you are aware, we started this journey of the synodality, but in this series that we have organized through these webinars, our interest is to look at our context of Africa and see to it that we come up with practical suggestions that will facilitate a dialogue and discussion and consultation so that the church in Africa really participates. In terms of our special guests that will be with us, I would like to introduce to you the following. The first is Sister Dr. José Ngalula, RSA. She is from the Democratic Republic of Congo. She is the first woman to be appointed to the Vatican International Theological Commission, which examines doctrinal questions of major importance. She's a member of the Sisters of St. Andrew and teaches in several theological institutions in Africa, including the Faculty of Theology of the Catholic University of Congo, DRC, and the Al-Mofaka Ecumenical Institute in Rabat, Morocco. Sister, you are welcome to this forum. We'd also like to introduce to you our second guest, Dr. Father Marcel Owineza. He's a Jesuit priest from Rwanda. He teaches systematic theology at Hekima University College here in Nairobi, Kenya. He also serves as the formation assistant of the Jesuit Rwanda-Burundi region. He has done pastoral ministry in Kigali, including supporting the education of poor children through the Misericordia Project. He has 2 upcoming books to be published in the year 2022. One is Reconciling Memories, a theology from wounds and reinventing theology in post-genocide Rwanda. Also, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you, Father Marcel. Now, I wanted us to begin by looking at the first verse, which has just started. The first verse of the synodal journey. And as you are aware from the Vademecum, we are supposed to now engage into the process of listening to one another and making sure that this process is really meaningful for the church in Africa. And I would like to begin by asking our guests, Dr. Marcel and Dr. José Ngalula, just to get their response, their impressions on how they look at the process. In my thinking, the question that is coming to my mind as important is this process which the church posing to us, that we go into the dioceses, we go to the grassroots. Is this process going to be meaningful, helpful, or there could have been a better way of doing it for the process to be more meaningful for us in Africa? I would want to get the reaction first from Father Marcel.
So the level at which we are right now is the most crucial one. The first and the second levels of phases are crucial. They involve all the members of the Catholic Church, inviting us to work together as a body, not just a sociological body, but led by the Holy Spirit to discern the will of God for this church, the body of Christ. So we run away from this understanding that we can do everything on our own. So this is a process that is led by the Holy Spirit. And for that to happen, certainly it requires also some human efforts. But at the heart of this process really is to plant dreams, a vision for the church for the future, to inspire, to energize, if you like, to reform, to nourish, to inspire trust, to bind up wounds, and even to begin to ask who is in and who is not out and why are they not there. Maybe to give an example, if you are in a family setup and you have gathered for a Thanksgiving and one of the members is not there, certainly you will feel concerned. If you are really a family, and we have this understanding of church as family in Africa. So we should even be asking, why are the people not there? So, and there is this medieval maxim that says that which concerns all must be addressed by all, or at least should have concern that everyone is included. So that's at the first level. But we also remember St. Paul. St. Paul correcting or making contributions for the Church of Jerusalem and inviting other communities to come in. So that was a concern that the challenges of one community should also be challenges or invitations to help, to support the other community. And on that to happen, there is a need for human involvement in the process. So the human involvement is indispensable. The goal is to renew, is to reappropriate. So sometimes the challenge is to think that Pope Francis is inviting us for this synodal process and people have fear that this is a democratic process or this is a Congress. No, that's not the point. Actually, the idea is how do we reappropriate already the faith that we have, or even ask questions, why do people go? So I want to dispel that fear. So we are dreaming of a church that is not a museum. Despite all the challenges, we can inspire hope. So this process at the local level is fundamental. If we miss it, we have missed the whole process. And something unique about this process is that now it involves everyone, not only the bishops, not only the clergy. So every member of the church is invited to be part of it. And so it reinforces actually the sensus fidei, if you like, the sense of the faith that the Holy Spirit who inspires all the baptized, it sends us on a mission, if you like. There's a missionary impetus to this whole process.
I like the way you have explained about the importance of engaging with the grassroots. But I wonder if the people on the ground have been helped enough to understand this word, which is, in my opinion, big when we talk about synodality. Maybe Sister Ngalula might come in at that point. What do you how do you understand this word in the first place?
Merci beaucoup. Alors moi, comme femme africaine, si je dois expliquer en des mots simples les processus actuels qui a déjà commencé, parce que le synode a commencé. Il faut dire aux gens dans nos paroisses, dans nos familles, dans nos petites communautés chrétiennes de base, le synode a commencé. Alors, quelle est la différence entre ce qui s'est passé dans les autres synodes? Pour que vous le compreniez, je prends un proverbe africain qui touche les femmes et qui a été transformé par les femmes africaines aujourd'hui. Le proverbe africain dit, quand un homme va dans une réunion, les bonnes idées qu'il dit dans une réunion, sa femme lui a dit ça la nuit. Donc, pour dire non, les femmes, ne vous inquiétez pas, vous participez aussi, vos idées arrivent à la réunion. Nous, les femmes, nous avons transformé les proverbes en disant, l'homme ne va pas seul à la réunion, il va avec sa femme et on entend les deux voix. parce qu'elles sont complémentaires. Par rapport au synode, au processus actuel du synode, cela veut dire quoi? Cela veut dire que jusqu'à présent, quand il y a eu des synodes dans l'Église, il y a la phase qu'on appelle universelle. Nos évêques vont à Rome et dans les synodes, ils disent les chrétiens de mon diocèse pensent ceci. Ils font les résumés des pensées des laïcs dans les diocèses, du peuple de Dieu. La synodalité, le processus en cours qui a commencé, dit ceci: on ne va pas seulement écouter les évêques à la phase universelle, on commence par écouter le peuple de Dieu lui-même. Donc, le synode a commencé. Il ne va pas commencer en 2023. Il a déjà commencé. Il commence par l'écoute du peuple de Dieu à la base. Et pour nous, en Afrique, c'est très, très important. Parce que nous sommes dans une mentalité culturelle, populaire, où on pense que c'est le chef qui parle, il parle pour tout le monde. Quand il a parlé, il a tout dit. La synodalité dit, le chef parle aussi. Le chef parle aussi. On commence par le peuple de Dieu, l'ensemble du peuple de Dieu. Tout le monde parle, tout le monde écoute tout le monde. Les fidèles laïcs écoutent les clergés écoute les fidèles laïcs, le peuple de Dieu écoute les évêques écoutent le peuple de Dieu. C'est cette circularité de l'écoute, pas simplement circularité de la parole, et puis on va faire les résumés, donc c'est circularité de l'écoute, c'est ça la synodalité. Et si je peux prendre une image biblique qui peut nous inspirer pour comprendre le processus qui a commencé, ça a déjà commencé. Il faut dire aux gens, le synode a déjà commencé depuis le mois d'octobre. L'image biblique, c'est Jésus qui marche avec les disciples d'Emmaüs. Jésus est le Seigneur. Jésus est le Sauveur. Jésus, il est la tête de l'Église. L'Église est son corps.
When you talk about journeying together, the example you give of man and wife in our local context, well, my concern with the synods is that we have had so many synods. Recently, there was a synod in the Amazon. We also had 2 synods in the past for Africa. These things, as Pope Francis said, sometimes they are just like events, they come and go. I agree with those people who are saying that this should not be just an event, but rather something that changes the life of the church here in Africa. Do you think there's something more that can be done in terms of arrangement so that it goes beyond the questionnaires and the like, but it really becomes the life of the church, journeying together and doing things together, as Pope Francis is saying? Do you think the way we are moving is enough, or we need to do something more?
Oui, je crois fermement pour que le processus actuel ne soit pas une parenthèse, que ça ne soit pas une distraction et après, en 2023, nous oublions. Il faut mettre sur pied des structures que nous inventons maintenant, que nous consolidons maintenant et qui vont rester stables après 2023. La première structure, c'est que nous avons besoin de former sur le continent africain des modérateurs qui facilitent l'écoute mutuelle. Il faut des gens compétents qui sont formés pour entraîner toute l'Église à s'écouter comme il faut et à cheminer ensemble dans l'écoute de l'Esprit Saint. Nous les voyons dans nos paroisses, dans nos communautés ecclésiales de base, dans les groupes et même dans les familles chrétiennes. Généralement, c'est ceux qui parlent fort qui sont écoutés. Ceux qui paraissent intelligents sont écoutés. Ceux qui s'imposent un peu sont écoutés. Tout le monde n'est pas écouté parce que on est un peu dans cette culture de les grands s'imposent, les grands aux sciences de positionnement. Alors, nous avons absolument besoin de former et de mettre dans nos paroisses, nos communautés de base, nos petites communautés chrétiennes partout, des gens qui ont le ministère de faciliter l'écoute mutuelle. Ça, c'est une structure à commencer maintenant à consolider pour qu'elle dure après 2023.
Sister is talking about putting structures that can sustain this journey even after 2023, and she's talking about training, she's talking about the education in the families. How do you think we can make sure that this journey we are starting does not just become an event, but it really becomes a way of life for the church in Africa? Father Marcel.
I think one of the, to my conception, I think we need to bridge really the prevalent, should I say, mental and psychological gap between the clergy, broadly speaking, and the laity. Where I think this is, Pope Francis has come to this whole idea of clericalism, and I don't think he's far from the truth, really. We need strong structures that really diminish or remove, if you like, the clerical mentality, where as priests we feel that we are superior by the right of ordination, we have it all, and it's wrong. I think with all my reverence to the bishops that we have on this group, all the priests that we have on this group, we need conversion. And that begins at a personal level, and then begin really, once we have bridged that gap, we can begin to mingle, a certain social mingling. You will recall that a lot of Jesus' ministry happens by mingling. Just look at the stories of the Gospels. He even allows intrusion, you know. You remember the story of the woman who comes at the house of Simon the leper, and she begins to wipe the feet of Jesus. She intrudes, and Jesus doesn't remove her. And even begins to give a lesson to Simon. So a conversion of heart on the heart of the clergy. And this goes even to the formation of the clergy itself. But I will come back to that point. So for us to achieve inclusiveness, to be able to move together, we have to bridge this gap. So your eminences on this group, your excellencies on this group, help us in this, because it's a drawback. The mechanisms that are here is how do you actually train our seminarians? oftentimes secluded. I look at my own, I come from Rwanda. The major seminary in Rwanda is in a very remote, removed place. It's wonderful for asceticism. It's wonderful for self-reflection, but you also need those seminarians to mingle with people. And if they are to be serving the people of God, actually even the people of God should evaluate them in the future.
Sister said the issue of training, she mentioned it as a first thing she would propose. And you agree, Father, that maybe in the formation of priesthood, there's something that can be done. I wanted to go back to Sister and say, did you have anything else in mind? When you said training, what do you mean? Is it the formation of the priest, or at what level are you looking at this training?
Alors, je commence par la famille. Ici en Afrique, nous sommes éduqués de telle manière que dans la famille, les adultes parlent, les enfants écoutent. Pour parler, je dois attendre d'être adulte, et quand je serai adulte, j'empêcherai les enfants de parler, et ça continue comme ça. Alors, les gens qui sont les animateurs de nos communautés de base, de nos petites communautés chrétiennes, ceux qui sont dans les séminaires, ceux qui sont dans les couvents, ceux qui deviennent évêques, ils viennent de nos familles, ils viennent de cette culture où il est dit que certains ont d'office le droit de parler, d'autres ont d'office l'obligation de se taire et d'écouter. Alors, la formation concerne tout le monde sur cette dynamique culturelle. C'est former des gens qui, déjà dans nos familles, encouragent les enfants à parler, encourage les adultes à écouter les enfants. Quand ça commence en famille, ça va aller dans les petites communautés chrétiennes, communautés de base. Les gens entraînés à écouter ceux qui sont insignifiants, entre guillemets, en famille, vont faire attention à écouter tout le monde dans les petites communautés chrétiennes, ceux qui n'ont pas étudié, ceux qui ont étudié, les riches, les pauvres, on va les écouter. Et pour ça, il faut former des gens, des bons animateurs des communautés chrétiennes. Dans les séminaires, les couvents, le clergé, c'est la même chose. Donc, il faut que les évêques entraînent le clergé à écouter le peuple de Dieu, à écouter des gens qui n'ont pas fait la théologie, à écouter les gens qui ne parlent pas français et anglais, etc. Donc, c'est ça que j'appelle la formation. Donc, ça touche tous les niveaux de l'Église, du diocèse.
I'm wondering whether this idea of synodality can be supported by our African cultures, or it's something Western, something foreign. I know that in our studies, we have had people, philosophers, or rather politicians, who have tried to explain democracy from the African point of view. But this concept of synodality, surely speaking, is it something that you think can be supported by our cultures?
Sure. Thank you very much, Father Andrew. If you were to allow me just to make a point on one other practical element that is needed, is not only for leaders and facilitators, but also challenging the culture of fear. Maybe I could come over to that later, but I think this is very central if we are going to have fruitful conversations at the grassroots level. The fear that this synod is geared towards democracy, we are going to change the faith, Let's take the example. You remember the sister who was invited. Her name is Sister Veronica Openibo. She was invited to speak to the president of the Episcopal conferences when Pope Francis invited them in Rome after the report in America on the clergy sex abuse, to see how the church can really face this issue. And Sister Veronica, she's a superior general of a congregation in Nigeria, the superior of the Society of the Holy Child Jesus, and she challenged the bishops to not fear, to confront these issues, to come out. And she said this, probably like many of you, I have heard some Africans and Asians say this is not our issue in countries in Africa and Asia. It is the problem in Europe and America. She said, but I have been accompanying so many people in education areas for 9 years, and I have heard these stories so much. Now, the issue here is not clergy sex abuse. I shouldn't be misunderstood. The issue here is to allow people to speak what are the challenges they have. Not only just the challenges, the joys as well. And if the clergy or pastoral agents are afraid that people are going to speak out, this whole process is not going to bear much fruit. So dealing with the culture of fear, and this easily can come because of complexity issues, but let me stop there. It's an area we need to develop. Yeah. Now, to your question on African values, are there some cultural basis to build on? The answer is yes. And also there is always room for improvement, definitely. The concept of a people gathering around a tree, when there are problems in the village, and they gather around until the solution is found. This is something that our revered Father Magesa comes back to a lot. It's something that is valuable. It's something that was very instrumental in Rwanda soon after the genocide and the war, where so many people were wounded, and it allowed the process of healing, the process of truth, even though there were some limitations. But that is something Africa certainly can offer. So if you put it more broadly, it's a concept of Ubuntu. In Rwanda, we call it Gacaca. Or if you put it more broadly in the Rwandan language, you call it Tubani, where we come together. But we also have some other aspects. We have Ujamaa. Some people think it's not valuable, but if you go to Tanzania, you realize how oftentimes this has brought people together. We have the Palava, where people gather around and speak out issues and give out dreams. In Zimbabwe, we have the concept of Dare, where I hope I am pronouncing it correctly, in the Shona culture, where you have a traditional leader brings together the family or the clan. They find a way of solving the problems or the issues. And if that doesn't happen, they go to the chiefdom as a process of trying to solve contextual issues. You can even go into the Kikuyu community. The Kiama, the traditional leader of the council of elders, will still find a way of solving community problems. So we already have some cultural basis on which
Father Marcel, I want to hear how Sister is looking at it. I appreciate your contribution. I like the point you raised about the fear, but also the what you highlighted about coming together and like. I will ask a further question on that point, but I want to hear first the reaction of Sister Ngalula on this point.
Oui, je suis tout à fait d'accord avec le Père Marcel. les valeurs de Ubuntu, de Ujamaa, de cet esprit familial de la palabre sont une base importante que nous avons à capitaliser. Je voudrais seulement ajouter ceci. Dans la palabre africaine, on ne se limite pas à parler, s'écouter les uns les autres, résoudre les problèmes, cheminer ensemble. Pas seulement émettre des paroles, des idées, des phrases. La dimension symbolique est très importante. Et ici, je crois que l'Afrique peut offrir quelque chose à l'Église universelle. On ne s'écoute pas les uns les autres seulement avec des phrases. Dans la palabre africaine, il y a par exemple le symbole du repas qui est très important. Le symbole des gestes de réconciliation, comme se laver les mains, en signe de réconciliation. Donc, en cheminant ensemble pour fraterniser, pour s'écouter, pour résoudre un conflit, les idées ne suffisent pas. Il faut la fraternisation et pour ça, les symboles sont très importants. Et je rêve que nos églises, nos diocèses, nos communautés chrétiennes en Afrique, durant cette phase diocésaine, on ne se limite pas à émettre des idées. On ne se limite pas à dire ce qui va, ce qui ne va pas. Mais qu'on fasse aussi des célébrations et les jeunes sont très créatifs pour ça. Nos jeunes sur le continent africain, nos enfants, peuvent créer des gestes symboliques, des célébrations symboliques qui nous aident à cheminer, qui expriment que nous cheminons ensemble dans l'écoute de la volonté de Dieu.
I wanted to drive your attention to this point about African values. And in the context of African ecclesiologies, I think people have been talking about small Christian communities as the ecclesial model for Africa. I would want to believe, Sister, and also Father Marcel, you will agree with me that although we may baptize this model, it also has its challenges. I've gone to a number of small Christian communities where women don't speak. It's only the few men who are there. I've gone to small Christian communities where you see basically the youth are not participating. So when if you may put it very briefly in 1 or 2 minutes, because from there I want us now to engage the people who are participating to also give their views. Do you really think that the small Christian communities can be an ecclesial model that will go in line with what Pope Francis is proposing with regard to synodality?
Moi-même, je suis théologienne, je participe à la vie de la communauté ecclésiale de base, petite communauté chrétienne de mon quartier, quand c'est possible, quand je suis à Kinshasa. Effectivement, la structure est là. Petite communauté, tout le monde est là, tout le monde marche. Mais la difficulté, c'est que l'esprit du cléricalisme est entré dans les petites communautés chrétiennes. Cela veut dire que ceux qui sont les animateurs, animatrices des petites communautés chrétiennes se comportent comme des prêtres à l'intérieur de la communauté chrétienne, comme des relais. Donc, les petites communautés chrétiennes, c'est bien, mais nous devons décléricaliser les petites communautés chrétiennes.
You are speaking of declericalizing small Christian communities. And at the same time, I also want to challenge so many of my sisters and brothers, lay people, but sometimes also we priests can become clerical because we are also made clerical by the laity. So this undue reverence, exaggerated reverence to the clergy, I think is another area we need to grow. So declericalizing the laity, but at the same time challenging the clericalizing laity. So the laity that actually make us feel as if the priest is above. I doubt to the question of how small Christian communities, speaking from the context of Rwanda, I have worked in a parish, I have served even in Boston where I studied. Small Christian communities have had their own benefits. There are many benefits, but since you asked about the challenges, one of the challenges is really participation. In Rwanda, they are often left to the less educated, to the mothers. And so, my dear bishops, your excellencies who are here, how do we form small Christian communities for lawyers? How do we form Christian communities for doctors, medical doctors? How do we form small Christian communities for the various levels? So that this is not only left to the mothers, wonderful, this is it, but we need to expand. It's a place also of mutual support. In Rwanda, we have been able to build houses for either victims or people who had been in jail, and when they came back, their houses were destroyed, partly because of the small Christian communities, because they knew the needs of the people. So I have a laudable appraisal for small Christian communities, but we need to expand the participation.
Thank you very much, Father Marcel.